Welcome to the NFP Podcast, where we explore the empowering world of natural family planning. I'm Amy Smith. Join me and my co-host Emily Appledorn each week. Together, we're here to dive deep into the science, the stories, and the spirituality behind NFP. Every week, we push back against the free love culture and advocate for a culture of responsible love, where intentionality and respect are at the forefront of family planning. Join us as we discuss everything from the practicalities of charting and fertility awareness to the profound impact NFP can have on relationships and communities. Whether you're new to NFP or a seasoned pro, our podcast is your go-to resource for honest conversations, expert insights, and real-life experiences. So grab a friend, settle in, and get ready to be inspired. This is the NFP Podcast. All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, everyone.
Emily and I are really excited. Today with us, we have back on the podcast someone that we've had before, Louise Boychuk from Canada, and Sara Flood. Sara, are you also in Canada?
No, I'm in Atlanta.
In Atlanta. Okay, great. So these ladies are here to discuss kind of I would say a hot topic a little bit in the fertility awareness NFP world, and that is ethics and FEMTech, which is, for those that don't know, like FEMTech refers to, and correct me if I'm wrong, ladies, but refers to technology advances in technological devices that help women monitor their fertility and their cycle health. So it includes like things like wearables that monitor your basal body temperature, or more closely connected to Louise and the last time we had her on the podcast talking about the Marquette method. And those are the monitors that are used to measure kind of hormone metabolites in urine. And I'd like to turn it over to both of you to kind of set the stage a little bit as to why we're having this conversation. Why do we need to be concerned about ethics and FEMTech? It kind of almost seems, if you're not thinking about it or you don't know the details, you might think like, well, what ethical concerns could there possibly be with a hormone monitor and some of the other, FEMTech devices that might be coming down the line. So our audience might be more familiar with Louise because we have had her on the podcast before. So if you don't mind, Louise, I'm going to let Sara start just so she can give a little introduction as to who she is and how she kind of came into this world of natural family planning and fertility awareness. And then these ladies are going to be very kind to share a really neat presentation they gave to the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops on this issue of ethics and FEMTech. So hopefully we can get all those, like, our ducks in a row based on what I just said for the introduction. So go ahead, Sara. Why don't you start us off?
Yeah. So I'm Sara Flood. I am also a Marquette NFP instructor, and I have been teaching the method for 15 years. And I learned when I was in college, I was introduced to theology of the body. And that was a long time ago. And it was when it was really popular to learn about it, and everyone was pretty amazed by it as we were being introduced to it. So I went to Franciscan University, and I remember after college, not long after, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to teach NFP. That just would be a really great way to bring my nursing career and theology together. And so I promised myself at the time that once I learned and used NFP successfully, I would teach it. And that's exactly what I did. And I had a very positive experience. I learned the Marquette method in 2006 from Dr. Aviel here in Atlanta, and had a very good experience with it. I was just textbook cycles, and it worked great for me. And then I had a couple babies, and I jumped into teaching it because that's what I promised myself I would do. And so I've been teaching it since 2011. And I had done all different versions of teaching it. I teach online. I've taught in person at churches, all different settings. And so then I eventually got connected, with teaching or with the Marquette Professional Association, so Marquette Method Professionals Association. And I served on the board as the second president of the organization a couple years ago. And I have rolled off, and Louise is now the president of the Marquette Professional Association. But during my term, we were trying to understand some of the FEMTech that's on the market and how our organization and the boundaries that we have as an organization, what we want to be connected to and what we want to be, what we want people to know us by, who we are as an organization. That was all kind of unfolding at the beginning during my term. And some of the FEMTech that's on the market has some very sketchy things on their website that made a lot of our users very hesitant to use it, and we had to answer the questions about whether it was even morally legitimate to use the products as Catholics. So that was kind of that started my term as president very quickly, and it slowly we learned more and more about the ethical dilemmas associated with FEMTech and our Catholic background. And so we worked through a lot of those, and that's how we came to this presentation, was realizing we needed to have not only a code of ethics for our organization, but we needed to communicate to the public and to other instructors like how to answer all of these questions that we had.
And the USCCB was an appropriate setting for this presentation because you wanted to make sure that clergy was equally informed about, if parishioners or if, their kind of congregants came to them and said, hey, can I be using this device because it says on the website that, XYZ population can also use this device, or we have, they have some type of morally ambiguous statement on human sexuality. Why the USC? I guess that was my thought, is that would be the why the USCCB, but was there another reason or how that came about?
There's other reasons. Yeah. It was through the NFP office, and we presented through the NFP office through the USCCB and to all of the dioceses in the country. And so all the people that do marriage and family offices, so that they understood what the instructors should, so they understood what the problems were, because they were all coming to the USCCB and saying, hey, these products that the people in the diocese are asking about, their websites are really confusing, and as the fancy word we use is sketchy, and so they were trying to answer the same questions. And since we had gone down this road with trying to understand what our boundaries should be, because we are deeply entrenched in FEMTech with the Marquette method, and so nobody had navigated that rabbit hole yet, and so we got to be the lucky ones and did that.
How did you guys start it? Because neither of you are ethicists, so did you? And I know it's not just you two, right? But did you approach, the National Bioethics Center? How did you guys kind of come about the conclusions you did come to?
Do you want me to answer, Sarah?
You go ahead.
Yeah, so we started by talking to the USCCB. We talked to Teresa Natari. She works at the NFP office. We knew her already, so we were like, well, she's a leader in the NFP world. Let's see if she has any thoughts on it. She connected us with a theologian. We talked to the NCBC. We talked to our own priests. The reason why Sarah and I are the ones that went down this road was kind of because we had a heartbeat and were willing to do it. Would you say, Sarah? We weren't particularly qualified. We were just like, well, we need an answer to this, so let's figure it out. And it ended up being a lot more complicated than we thought it would be. We thought it would, the initial question was, can clients use this monitor morally? Can they use this monitor? And so that was the question that we were trying to answer. And then as we started talking to theologians and ethicists, they just brought up other things related to the same sphere. And we were like, oh, we hadn't considered that. What's the answer? And they were like, oh, no, we don't know the answer. You have to figure it out yourself, what you think as an organization. And so that's how the development of the Code of Ethics, the MMPA Code of Ethics, came to be, was just what do we believe? What do we stand for? What are we okay with? And what are we not okay with? And we thought it would be just so simple, don't do bad things, was kind of what we were hoping the Code of Ethics could be. But when it comes to FEMTech and when it comes to fertility, it's just super entangled, right? Like there's a lot of gray areas. And so it ended up being, how long did it take us, Sarah? Like 2 years. It was your whole term trying to figure this out.
Yeah, because like as I was coming on, I had what kind of started it was we had a lot of random people kind of mentioning, oh, I'm not comfortable with it. I'm not comfortable with it. And then I had a client that really needed one of the products because the Clear Blue wasn't working for them for their situation. And I wanted them to use the mirror monitor, and they came to me and they were like, I am not comfortable with that monitor based on what's on their website. And so then we contacted then CBC. They said, talked about the cooperation with evil and that it's okay to use it if there's nothing else available. And then we were like settled with that for a little while. We explained to our instructors that all of that. And then about a few months later, we started trying to understand like the companies were wanting to hire Marquette instructors and like, what does that mean for our organization? And so it just started getting really confusing, and we had to answer the questions, and we thought, oh, we'll call the NCBC, they'll answer our question. And they would be like, I don't have an answer for you. You have to figure it out. And then we'd contact other organizations, and they would say, I don't know what you're talking, they weren't willing to talk to us about it because they didn't have an answer. And so we had to do a lot of reading and educating ourselves about what cooperation with evil even is. And then we started this rabbit hole or dominoes of like all the different aspects of this and what it means for our organization. Like, what do we want our name on? What's okay with having our name on? And there's different aspects of that we talked about.
So this isn't specifically the Clear Blue monitor. This is the mirror monitor.
Yeah, it's all of them. It's not just
mirror. There's if you look at almost any FEMTech website, there's something sketchy on it.
Right.
Sketchy as in like it doesn't align with our values as Catholics, as NFP users. And so it started with a question about Mira, but like I said, everything is just so entangled, right? And so we were like, well, yeah, this is bad. What the client's concerned, this is a valid concern. And so then we started looking at other FEMTech, and we were like, oh, it's all bad. Like there's every FEMTech company has at least one scandalous thing on its website. And so it's not just a question of like, oh, could we use this one specific monitor? It's like, as Catholics, as NFP users, like, what are we comfortable doing and what are we not comfortable doing? Where do we draw the line? And what set of guidelines do we have to kind of discern as a couple, discern as an NFP instructor, discern as an NFP method? What do we feel comfortable using, implementing, and giving money to?
So I'm intrigued. So I definitely want to see hear the presentation. I want to hear you guys walk through it, because I just am thinking, in other areas where there's potentially ethical concerns, like my husband and I were talking about this because he was asking, so who are you interviewing today for the podcast, and I was explaining the situation, and I was equating it to, which could be totally wrong, but I was thinking of it as one of those situations like a Target versus Walmart, or like, well, we can't shop, you should never shop at Target because they have a section of kids clothes that's like LGBTQ positioned. And it's this understanding of like, so the church has said we can't shop at Target because they're selling clothes, or you just don't feel comfortable doing that because of moral religious things, which totally fine. Don't shop at Target. I really like the platewares, the plateware set at Target, so I'm going to go there to get that. I don't support the LGBTQ, Q stuff, and I'm still okay getting this because I can't get it somewhere else, and I like the product.
Right.
So can I do that in good faith? Is that okay, or is it a no, all or nothing? You can't support this. By going there at all, you're supporting this company. You're giving a red, a green light to them doing this clothing line.
Right.
So anyway,
this is exactly the conversation we had. You're going to love this. That's Sarah, I think we should start at slide.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Maybe.
Okay.
Do you want to be the slide master?
Sure.
Because I'm curious where this is going to end up, because I think I'm just very sensitive, because not like personally, like emotionally sensitive to it, but I'm just aware of that there's so much gray. Right? Like there are so many different scenarios that people are with. So again, to hear like Target, evil, never shop there. It's like, oh my gosh, but Target's 5 minutes down the road, Walmart's 45 minutes down the road. You're really telling me I have to pack all my kids up, including my screaming infant, and drive for 45 minutes to buy the dishes down there. Like that's kind of the real life scenario. And it's like, okay, if really I have to do that, I guess I will do it or I will go without. But do I really have to do that? Like making sure what we're talking about is like actually necessary because it's affecting people's, real lives.
All right. So as Marquette instructors, we know FEMTech can be really helpful. It's always been a part of the method that we teach. We primarily use Clearblue to measure hormone levels, but as we said, there's more technologies coming out. And so we've been kind of implementing newer technologies as well. But there are issues with FEMTech that need to be explored. So as we were kind of spending time down the rabbit hole, we identified 4 different ethical avenues that we're going to talk about today, and it's all related to FEMTech. So the first one is cooperation with evil. The second one is scandal, conflict of interest, and recommending products with no research. So we're going to start with cooperation with evil. So cooperation with evil is the free and knowing assistance of an individual or an institution in an immoral act performed by another individual or institution. So before we start, we are not moral theologians, Sara and I. We are both RNs. We're both Marquette instructors. We've had a lot of conversations with theologians to explore this topic, and we've looked at it from lots of different angles. So one analogy that really stuck out to me that one of the theologians used was, if you work at a hardware store and a guy comes in and he wants to buy an axe and you sell him the axe, and then you see in the news that the guy killed his wife with the axe. You did sell the axe to the guy, but you didn't know what he was going to use it for. And because you didn't know what he was going to use it for, you didn't cooperate with the evil act. However, if the guy had asked you which axe was best for murder, and then you sold him the axe, you would have been cooperating with evil. Even if he had hinted at the fact that he might kill someone with that axe, you would still be considered to be a cooperator in the evil act. You'd be just a little bit more further removed. So that's a really black and white example of cooperation with evil. Catholic NFP teachers face the prospect of assisting immoral actions in 2 different ways, directly or indirectly, especially in the world of NFP. So we've come across couples who they're looking to use NFP to time IUI or IVF cycles. And it seems like this specific crowd is attracted to FEMTech as well. So this is where our paths kind of start to cross and mingle. So we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about, as an NFP instructor, what you can and can't do. We just want to highlight that as you venture into FEMTech and NFP, you're very likely to find yourself in situations where you need to carefully discern. So one of the first situations that came across our radar was a new fertility monitor. So the monitor came out in 2018. Marquette started exploring it as a tool that might be helpful for our clients with underlying health conditions or our women who are undergoing chemo. When the monitor came out, the Marquette researchers started investigating its use, and they found that it was potentially a really powerful tool. When it was first launched, the monitor's website was super basic. It was just like you could buy the monitor, you could buy test sticks, and that was kind of it. As time went on and the website evolved, more and more information was introduced to the site, and we found that we were morally opposed to a lot of the things that the company was posting about. We also received, like we as users, received lots of emails from the company pushing ideologies that we weren't in alignment with. So this is just one of the screenshots of the emails we received. So the marketing emails we received talked about how to do IUI from home, the benefits of IVF, lots of resources for LGBTQ plus couples who are trying to conceive. There were blogs on the website that explored if a transgender person could conceive. We started to feel really uncomfortable. And because of the content on the website, we didn't really want to recommend the monitor to our clients. So our pressing question was, can you recommend the use of a monitor that's sold by a company who's promoting immoral things? Because we know that when we give them money, they're going to be using that money for things maybe we don't agree with. Are we cooperating with evil? So going to the black and white analogy, are we recommending the purchase of an axe that's been proven to be really good for murder, even if we want the axe to be used for trees? So what we learned was that there's a lot of different levels of cooperation. And when you're in a gray situation, it's really important to discern how connected you are to that situation. Again, we're not theologians, so we're not going to give a really high level explanation of this, but there's different ways that an individual could cooperate with evil. So in the context of an NFP instructor, you could cooperate really closely with evil. For example, working at an IVF clinic or teaching couples how to track their fertility for the purposes of IUI. You could cooperate with a little more distance. So you could work at a fertility clinic that does IVF, but you only teach NFP. You could cooperate even less directly. So telling a client that you don't help with IUI or IVF, but you can point them in the direction of someone who can. We weren't really sure how directly connected in the evil act we would be if we were recommending that the clients purchase the monitor from a company who so obviously promotes immoral acts. And what we learned from speaking to ethics and theologians is it's okay to recommend the device as long as there's no other comparable alternative to the device. You're recommending the monitor solely for the purposes of NFP, and you make it clear that you're recommending the device for the purposes of NFP and you don't align with the ideology of the company. So that brings us to our next ethical dilemma, which is scandal. So the church's definition of scandal is different than society's definition. When I first was introduced to the concept of scandal, what came to mind was, when someone says like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she did that. That's so scandalous. That's a really basic understanding of scandal, but it actually goes a lot deeper than that. So a situation would be scandalous if your attitude or your behavior leads someone to do evil. If your attitude or behavior could reasonably be construed to be accepting of an immoral behavior. So what that could look like in the NFP world as an instructor is if you have a couple who's struggling with abstinence and you say something like, you should abstain during the fertile window, but some couples use condoms during that time. You're not telling the couple to use condoms, but they could reasonably construe from the conversation that you're accepting of couples' use of condoms during the fertile time. And if you're a good Catholic NFP instructor, and if you're accepting the use of condoms during the fertile time, maybe the use of condoms isn't so bad. So when it comes to an NFP instructor using or recommending FEMTech, it's really easy to get tangled up in a scandalous situation. So here's a few examples of things that are front and center on FEMTech websites. It's not just one company. Almost every FEMTech site has something scandalous on it. So you can see, can transgender men get pregnant? Here's why it matters that midlife women still have access to mifepristone, which is the abortion pill. Thinking of having a donor-conceived child, 3 steps will set you up for success. Talking about LGBTQ plus families. So it's on every website, every FEMTech website. So the next question we came up against is, we know that we're not doing evil, and so we can recommend the monitor for the purposes of NFP and not be cooperating with evil, but is the risk of scandal too high? Is it scandalous to have an NFP instructor recommending a product from a company whose ideologies are just polar opposites of Catholic values? And the answer is, it can be. You have to be really careful. So there's a few ways we can avoid scandal. You can be really clear with the clients, make sure that they're understanding that you're recommending the device because it's a good tool, not because you're in alignment with the company. You can warn them about what they'll see on their website. You can opt out of any directories. You wouldn't want your name to be listed on a FEMTech website. That would be super scandalous. And then I've also found it helpful to warn clients that they might get promotional emails from the company and encourage them to unsubscribe from any email lists of that company.
Can I interrupt you really quick, Louise?
Yeah, sure. What's that?
So my understanding, and I don't know if you guys know the exact answer, if you just have thoughts about this, but the reason why we wouldn't want someone's, like as an NFP teacher, my name listed on this website, the scandalous part is that there's no context there. I can't be there to kind of defend myself to say, I'm here because the monitor is good, not because I align with the values of the company. And so someone sees that, and to what a point you already raised is like, in their mind, they're thinking, oh, Amylynn's name is here, then this must be okay. This must, like, exactly. The company and everything that they stand for must be okay. So I guess that I can use this monitor, and I can also support my friend who is going to be in a lesbian marriage next month. I can go to that, whatever it is. Like, you can see how it trickles down, similar to like avoiding scandal. I don't want to be seen somewhere having lunch with another man when my husband's not there. They don't know that that's, our very good friend and my husband's okay with it, but it can lead to other thoughts of, extramarital lunches with other random strange men is totally okay. So yeah, that idea, the perception of scandal is something to be aware of.
Yes, and with an instructor being listed on a FEMTech site, it is scandalous. But what if it said, Louise Boychuk, Marquette method of NFP only teaches NFP couples? Is that okay? that was our next question, which led us into a conflict of interest. And so Sara's going to talk about that.
Okay, so conflict of interest occurs when an individual's personal interests, family, friendship, financial, or social factors could compromise his or her judgment, decisions, or actions in the workplace. So this was one of those ethical dilemmas that we didn't know we had until it was brought to our attention that, oh, hey, conflict of interest is also a concern in the medical world in general. And so you need to be careful about that. And that brought us to like several scenarios over the years that we had seen and we weren't really able to put our finger on it. Like different instructors who taught Marquette would be kind of a consultant for some of these other companies. And we thought it was unusual, but we just really weren't sure. We just didn't know. So as we started talking more about it, we realized that we needed to address this problem. So the conflict of interest occurs when an individual's personal interests conflict with the work they're doing. So we had two different points of view that we had to address. One was employment with FEMTech. So, like I said, we had many instructors who were connected with some of these companies, and we thought, oh, it's a bridge to the company. It builds good relationships with the company. But as an instructor, you're giving health advice, and you don't want your health advice to be tainted by the benefits you get as an employee of the company. So, when we were talking to the theologian about this, and he said, even if the company isn't doing bad things, conflict of interest is a concern for anyone in healthcare. So we started to unpack this, the ethical dilemma of conflict of interest. And so working for a company introduces bias or perceived bias in your recommendations. Like, do you honestly think that this person needs this product, needs to spend this money on this product? Is that really what's best for that person? Or is it because you get a kickback or because you're employed by that company? And then it also could be scandalous to be employed by a company that's doing bad things. So if the company has some of these scandalous things on the website, how connected are you to that company because you work there? And I think it's hard on the topic of scandal where we work in this world. There's just like you brought the same target topic up, like everywhere we go, there's, people are doing things that we don't align with. So it is really tricky to navigate this. Can you not work for a hospital that maybe does abortions in another department? And those were questions that we had. So, yeah. So if you're working for a company and receiving money from a company that's doing bad things, your employment with the company would reasonably lead people to believe that you're in alignment with the values of the company. The thing with FEMTech is that they're all about reproductive health. Like, that's their entire product is reproductive health. And we know how sticky that topic can be. So when you look at like a hospital system, they're doing all sorts of good things. They just may have departments that are doing bad things. So we had to kind of parse out some of that aspect of, well, you can't work in you can't do the abortions, you can't do the contraceptives, but work in the health, if you work in the cardiac department, or you deliver babies, but you're not doing the sterilizations and stuff. So we had to parse a lot of that out. So employment was tricky. And then affiliate links. This is a little stickier and a little more popular in the world, in the social media world. So you see people with their affiliate links all the time. And in case you didn't know, an affiliate link is a unique link that you get from a company. So if someone uses your link, the company pays you a small portion of money, or you receive perks for recommending that product. And so sometimes the more product you sell through the link, the more money and perks you get. So if you may not be employed by the company, so your bias is removed a little bit, but it's still there because you get money for someone using that product. And as we looked into it, we learned that there are actually anti-kickback laws in the world for healthcare providers. So if you receive Medicare or Medicaid funding, it's actually illegal to receive financial kickback or perks from a company for recommending the medical device or medication. So this is really tricky with pharmaceuticals and medical products, just in the healthcare world in general. And then you have the question of bias. Are you recommending the product or device because it's in the best interest of the client? And as a client, you should know this, like, is your instructor, is your professional that you're working with, are they saying you should get this because they make money on it, or are they recommending it honestly and because it's the best actually for you? So this goes both ways. As a patient or a client in healthcare, you should look at that aspect of what your provider is recommending. So, and then of course, scandal remains. You're getting money from a company that's doing bad things. We also had the question of, the Robin Hood effect, like you're taking money from this company that's doing bad things and you can do good things with it. Louise had a little story.
Oh, yeah. So I, like a couple years ago, had an affiliate link with TempDrop. With TempDrop, they give you like a tiny bit of money, but if people buy enough through the link, they'll give you a TempDrop. And so I was taking the money and giving it, like putting it towards a client that couldn't afford instruction. And then I would take the TempDrop and I would give it to a client who needed to incorporate temps into their tracking. And so like in my mind, that was just totally fine. Like I was just doing good things with that money. But when we were talking to a theologian, he's like, it's the scandal. Like it just still is. It looks like a conflict of interest, even if it's not a conflict of interest. And it's scandalous to be associated with companies that are doing bad things. And so I got rid of the affiliate link. And like, it really didn't affect my life that much, but it was just an interesting thing. As we were exploring, I was like, oh, I am doing like a Robin Hood with that money. Like I'm doing good things with that money. But it still is too scandalous and it introduces a perceived conflict of interest.
So since that happened, we have actually, since this all went down, we created our code of ethics, and we have since connected with several FEMTech companies and requested coupon codes for our organization. So it actually ends up being a win-win. We don't have conflict of interest, and our users get even a better discount because they're using a coupon code, and the usually affiliate links are going to give the client less of a discount because they're giving kickback to the affiliate person. And so the coupon code has a bigger discount typically, and then we have no conflict of interest. We can say get it or don't get it. It doesn't affect us, but we think that this product would be a good product for you. Here's a coupon code to get it at a better rate. And so it gives us that like we have those connections with the companies and have those good relationships. And then, and we can still help our clients get a discount. So the next thing, this is near and dear to my heart and Louise's as well, is recommending. Our last concern that we have encountered is recommending products with little or no research. So these companies are incredibly good marketers. All of them. That's their job, is to get you to think you need that product to fix the problem that you have. And I have clients coming to me all the time that they got this product or that product or whatever because they did all their research and everything said this is the one that would work best for them. So as Marquette instructors, we're all healthcare providers and we teach NFP from an evidence-based lens. We want to look at the research before we recommend it. We want to know that it's not just this cool product that tracks your sleep and temperatures and it looks cool on your hand or whatever. We want to know that it actually is going to work because, pregnancy is a really big deal, right? Making a new human life is a huge deal. And we don't want to be recommending anything that's not been studied properly. And our products that our clients are using, we want to know that they've been studied. So with the conversation of FEMTech on the table, we're seeing a lot of confusion in marketing about what products have evidence-based behind it. And these websites are really, really good at convincing you that their product is the best. And some make claims about the accuracy of the fertile window that hasn't been proven in research. It's anecdotal or it's market research. It's not human subject research. And that's very, very different than scientific research. So we're going to look at some things that we pulled from some websites, again, from all different companies that I find very intriguing. It makes me want to buy the Oura Ring or the Temp Drop or the, Immuno Monitor or the keg. The keg is one that I'm getting a lot of questions about too. And it's, a thing you put in your vagina and it tests your mucus and tells you about, is it electrical resistance, and it tells you your fertile base. There's a lot of products out there, man. It's very interesting. But we see things like get unmatched accuracy, 6 times more sensitive than other trackers, 7 times more accurate, 3 times more reliable. But compared to what? What are they comparing it to? We don't know. They don't tell you. Trusted by 200,000 plus women, get pregnant 10 times faster. Clinical grade accuracy, trusted by doctors and experts, increases your chances of conceiving up to IV level success. How successful
is that one? Kind of funny because IVF is like not that successful.
Not right, correct.
Yeah, the citations at the bottom.
That's the one that it stuck out to me. I was like, oh, increases my chances by like not very much. Great,
like 2%. It's like not even very successful, anyways. So we know that FEMTech can simplify NFP, and there's a lot of discussion in NFP circles surrounding NFP. But it's really important to go to the sources and find out what what the human subject research actually shows, what the peer-reviewed published research is showing, not the market research, because the market research is it's focused on trying to achieve pregnancy. Very little is focused on trying to avoid pregnancy. We know that about NFP, that it's something that we just need more and more research on. But recommending products, methods, like processes, anything that's not been studied is an ethical concern, right? We want to make sure that we're recommending things that have been studied. We know that there's been studies on comparative studies with Temp Drop. That one was recently, I think, published last year. They compared the Temp Drop. We don't know, it was compared to LH testing. So they can say, okay, well, their algorithm in the Temp Drop app is very closely aligned with an LH search. There's a lot of studies being done currently on Mira. Anito has not been studied with NFP at all, but it's also a very popular product. Aura is another one that has not been studied at all, but it's very interesting and intriguing. And it's not a problem if it's not tracking your sleep right. But if you're using the app, the Oura Ring for temps, and you're using that to avoid pregnancy, you could get pregnant if it's not accurate, right? And it's never been studied for NFP. So it's just really important that our products and our methods and the things we're doing have been studied. And so
on that note, really quick, I just wanted to make a point here. This is like similar to other areas of life, right? There's not a lot of regulation around the use of the word natural on food products. And so you can get natural Fruit Loops. I don't know if that actually exists, but it's out there somewhere. It says it on the box. So just for people to know as users, to be informed, just because they throw out a statistic somewhere, there's no one regulating the use of this language. And so they can just say something and we don't know if it's true. And so maybe we can plug in a little bit of hope here. Then how can I, as the more or less like kind of ignorant, right? I don't know. Like, how do I know who's telling me the truth? Where do I go to get truth? Where will I know, okay, what they're saying about their percent of success rate to avoid or achieve a pregnancy is actually evidence-based, and it's not just some random number thrown up on a website that looks really good.
So the Marquette instructors are well informed of this. This is one of the aspects in our training, is to understand that what we're doing is evidence-based. We talk about this in our Marquette Professional Association a lot about, okay, where's the evidence of that recommendation? And we say it all the time. Well, there's never been any studies on that, or we're in the middle of studying that. We don't have results yet. And so we talk about it all the time. So as users, find a Marquette instructor to talk to, because they are trained in that. And it is important that to recognize that FEMTech's not the method. You can't get the mirror monitor or the needle monitor or the Aura ring and, and just say, okay, well, I'm going to use this to avoid pregnancy and expect it to work, because their app is not intended to avoid pregnancy. And their app doesn't have any studies on avoiding pregnancy. So you want to work with right now, the Marquette method is the one that's doing has all this research and has the training in this. And so the Marquette instructors would be who you would talk to about your FEMTech and what the evidence is out there for it. When you can use it to just add on as a cool trend, a cool thing to use versus does it actually work? So I have people that'll use. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to say, FEMTech is not the NFP method, but also not all NFP methods integrate FEMTech, right? So even if you're learning Billings and your Billings instructor is encouraging you to incorporate MIRA or even just LH tests, is it a part of the method that they're trained to teach? If it's not, I would be super cautious with that, right? They haven't been trained. It's not, if you're trying to be a perfect user, you can't be a perfect user if you're using things that aren't a part of the method. And so it's really easy to get caught up in the hype of FEMTech. And it is these devices are so pretty and they're fancy and they're really cool. And the apps integrate so well. And it just pulls the data and it's you don't even have to chart anymore. But that's not the method, right? And so I would just, for users, just be really careful if you're wanting to integrate FEMTech into the method that you're using. Make sure that your method is compatible with FEMTech. And if it's not, make sure that you're learning how to integrate FEMTech with NFP from someone who's really trained in how to do it. And you're not just learning it in a back alley or learning it from the site, getting the Aura ring and just wearing it and being all right, we're looking for a temp shift. That's not going to work. Or maybe it will. Maybe you'll successfully avoid pregnancy doing it that way, but probably not if you do it for a long time. So you just have to really put on your critical thinking hat when you're thinking about FEMTech. And it's not just is this good tech or bad tech? It's is this the appropriate tech for my situation? Is this going to help me? Or is this just going to cost me $1 gazillion and leave me still in an incredibly murky situation? And I think some of the super fancier FEMTechs are just really unnecessary for a lot of users. They don't need that amount of clarity. It actually just sometimes makes things more confusing. And so working with an instructor to help you discern what is the appropriate thing for me to be using, I think that's super important. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. Emily and I talk about that a lot on the podcast. Just, we are big on the work with a trained teacher, work with a trained NFP teacher.
Right.
And we also know, because we've all encountered women who, read some information and they kind of put their own method together and they seem to experience their own success with it and they're content and happy. So I understand that that's a reality, but I think the message we want to send to the broader public, right? Whenever you're doing some type of a public service announcement or public education, you have to speak to, just in general, most people will not have the bandwidth to do what's necessary to really get to the nitty-gritty of how things work. And it's just a lot easier to go to the person who already has that understanding and say, teach me, because I'm beholden to whatever you have to tell me, because I don't have the ability or the desire really to even go down that path. I just want to use something successfully. So yeah, this is a great expression that NFP can use FEMTech as a part of a method. So it's a tool, but it's not the method itself. So I didn't mean to cut you guys off. Thanks for addressing that.
Yeah. That's
Perfect. That was great timing. Okay. And that was it for those that are listening. If you are just listening actually in the audio, definitely, if you can, I'll link it in the show notes for Spotify, but head over to YouTube so you can see the presentation that we just walked through to help kind of guide the conversation. But Sara and Louise did a great job of also just kind of reading through the slides and making it understandable through audio alone. So thank you both so much. That was exceptional. I feel like now we're left with a lot of gray. No, just kidding. It was great. I mean, my big takeaway, Emily, I'd love to hear, yours, and then Sara and Louise, kind of after having gone through all of this, I mean, over the course of 2 years, kind of where you both stand. Do you both sit in this, I actually feel a little bit more confused than I did when we first started? Or did you leave this whole process with clarity? Kind of where are you both at now? Especially, Louise, you sit in a leadership role in this organization with Marquette. And so, yeah, kind of where do you both feel things are at right now? Where do you see them coming down the pipe as we get more AI and more technologies coming? Do you like the incorporation of technologies? I know, Louise, you already alluded to the fact that some of them might be, unnecessary. I find them personally very exciting, and it's only for the sheer fact that they could take a little bit of a load off of having to think about it and learn it and do it all. And it's like, wow, it would be really nice if I could just plug something into a device and it will say, you're going to ovulate on Wednesday with 100% accuracy. I'm like, great, thanks. That's all I needed to know. And now we can go about our little Catholic family life, and that's it. So anyway, either of you want to start?
Well, I think it's just, I don't think we're experts yet. I think that we never would be, even if we talked about this for 1,000 years. I think it is just, as Catholics, there's a lot of gray that you need to navigate. And so I think what the 2 years in the rabbit hole gave to us was just the ability to really think and discern, and to come up with like a really clear set of like, what do we believe? And like, where personally would I draw the line? What do I feel comfortable with? What do I feel uncomfortable with? And knowing that different people will have different answers. And that's not anything we have control over. And sometimes people come up with a different answer, and it really makes you question their integrity. And it's just interesting. It's been a really interesting process to just like, to watch the ethical conversation unfold and see how people respond to it. I do think there is a time and a place for technology. I think it's not necessary all the time. I think you have to just always wear a discerning hat of like, is this necessary for me or not? But I've had women, like I taught 2 women last week who both were undergoing chemotherapy, and they just couldn't track their cycles. Like they weren't cycling, but one of them had just stopped chemo, so presumably her cycle will be coming back. Not sure. Her doctor was like, maybe not. And so what do you do in that season? And it's like really important that they don't get pregnant. And so those are the times when it's like really nice to have that tech to be able to see like, what are your hormones doing? Like, objectively speaking, what is your estrogen right now? What is your LH? What is your FSH? To be able to assess that with them and be able to give like a little bit of light down the tunnel of like, this is what's happening in your body. And like, maybe it is still just a big question mark and you should keep abstaining, or maybe your body's making it really clear that you're not going to be ovulating right now. So it has been a really cool process to be a part of. Marquette is currently researching Mira. And so that is also a fun process to be a part of. Is like there's a human subjects research study happening right now on FEMTech, and it's still in the works. So we can't say how effective it is. And that's, again, an important thing to be disclosing to our clients is like, essentially it's a big fat experiment right now. Maybe next year we'll have a different answer, right? Like as the research gets published. But it's just always important, I think, to just keep your discerning hat on when you're hearing things about fertility, when you're hearing things about sex and marriage, and just, is this true? Is this good? And is this something that we should be going along with?
How about you, Sara?
Well, I think that we have to walk through this world figuring out how to live in a very worldly world. And I felt like there were questions I didn't know I had that came up, and I got to have those answered before I even had them, which was nice. I feel like there is more clarity. Like before we went down this rabbit hole, there was no answer, and it was very confusing what different people did. And I feel like I came out on, we're on kind of the other side of figuring out the code of ethics. There's always going to be more questions. I don't have the answer to what AI is going to do for this world. I'm sure there's a lot of questions that I don't know that I'm going to have, or I don't know what the questions are yet on that front. But just, can we continue to participate and use these products? Yes. And we have to use them with discern whether they're right for us. I love tech. I love having all the tech. I have a little, I'm always using it, the next newest product, because I just find it so fascinating. But I don't think everybody needs to do that. I think for most people, they can just keep it as simple as possible and be very effective. And that's one of the parts of our model is when the method is simple and easy to use, is going to be more effective because, if we're not juggling a whole bunch of things and a whole bunch of interpretations, it's going to be easier, and it's going to be more effective, is kind of what our research has continued to show. But the products are neat, and I think it's nice that we can use them, but we do need to be careful about how we're associating with the companies and with the products and what we're saying to our clients. And so I don't know if
you're a Catholic tech entrepreneur, please make a product that has also a business behind it that has, strong Catholic moral ethics. Then we just will go shop at your store. We don't have to worry about it at all. In a nutshell,
that would be great. We would still have the conflict of interest would still be there no matter
That's
what.
A good point.
How good the company is. So yes, make good products, be good companies, but also there's still the conflict of interest that we have to navigate as well. So
I'm curious, before we wrap up, Emily, did you have anything?
I was just going to say, as an NFP teacher, I'm so grateful you guys did this, because there are, like you said, Sara, it answered questions you didn't even really know you had as you were researching. I didn't know I had certain questions that you guys addressed even in this presentation. So it's just making me think of just my NFP, teaching career, so to speak, and just different things that maybe I've said or done that I didn't think twice about. So I just really appreciate you stirring that and sharing that with our listeners, and then educating these bishops, what you've done with, it sounds like the family life directors, would you say, is
so audience.
Yeah. So hopefully in turn the bishops, but just directly, just these family life directors in the country, just for them to have a general knowledge about this. I just feel really grateful for all the research you guys did. And I would hope any NFP teacher especially would just listen and kind of consider all of these things, because it could shape or frame what they say or don't say that they didn't even think about.
I completely agree. I'm equally grateful. I can't wait to share this with our audience so that they can share with other people too. I'm curious, as we wrap up, if this came up at all for either of you, even just in your own heads, or if it came up amongst yourselves. So thinking about the scenario where, the spiritual pride, where I'm just not going to shop at Target because they are evil, and I'm literally going to drive the extra 45 minutes. And that is the holy and righteous thing to do, to go to this other store that's, even though very inconvenient. Children are screaming, it's costing us more in gas. There's so many things, I'm kind of making an extreme, but I know I have struggled with spiritual pride myself. So maybe I'm the only one that can relate to this. But this puff upness of, I'm doing the morally superior act by not getting this monitor, even though it would be so beneficial and really help our marriage, us understand our fertility, allow for more opportunities for us to come together as a couple in the marital act, which will strengthen our relationship. Well, I'm just, no, because that's just, there's any moral line there, I'm going to go the hard direction. That's the more right direction. I'm just curious. I've been broken of that in my life, because I often would think that, this is the morally superior option. I am therefore, which sadly, right, it was then this subconscious of, now I am morally superior for choosing this hard option. Whereas you pitifully morally weak individual are choosing the lesser option. Just curious if that kind of came up for you guys, or what you would say to someone in this world of NFP where you could argue that probably has happened before. That's it. Sara, Louise.
Well, I have a thought. So, first of all, pride aside, it's pride, pride aside, your spiritual pride aside, it's not bad to go to Walmart instead of Target, right? So if you're making that decision, if you discern that you feel so uncomfortable with Target because of the things that they sell, it's not bad for you to go to Walmart. And you could argue that it's actually a big sacrifice for you to do the right thing, right? You're taking your kids, they're screaming at you. It's you're driving way further. And so there's not any bad thing that would come out of that, except for pride, which is a sin. But I also think if you're boycotting Target, if you're just like quietly walking away, or maybe you're telling your friends, but Target doesn't know that you left. They don't care that you left. And so I would argue that if you really wanted to like make an impact, you should tell the company how you feel, right? Don't just like stop buying socks from there or plates from there. Like write to them and say, this makes me feel really uncomfortable. And for this reason, I won't be shopping at your store anymore. I think that makes way more of an impact than just like not going there anymore and going somewhere else. And Walmart's not good either, right? And like we talked about coffee companies, like Starbucks is very LGBTQ plus friendly, and maybe, oh my gosh, I'm in Canada. I can't think of any other coffee companies in the United States right now. Maybe another company, sure, Dunkin' Donuts. Maybe they're not as overtly advertising to that group, but they probably still do on their website have something about an inclusive environment. And so are you actually like, which is the lesser of the two evils, or are they comparable? Or like, are they getting their beans from like a place where they're taking advantage of people and paying them really low wages? Like there's just, it doesn't, every company's bad. Like
it doesn't end.
We're like, oh my gosh, like you could be morally opposed to almost any company for a whole handful of reasons. And so what impact are you making by boycotting it? Why are you boycotting it? Are you boycotting it to save your soul? Are you boycotting it because it makes you feel really uncomfortable? Both of those are fine reasons to boycott it. But I think to be able to like really identify it and be like, this is what's making me feel uncomfortable, and this is what I'm going to do to alleviate that. But I would also challenge you, just like the theologians challenged us, is make your opinion known to the company. Sara and I met with the Mira executives to talk to them and to say like, look, this is making us feel really uncomfortable. This is against our ideologies. This makes us not want to recommend your product. Would you consider just taking it down, take it off your website? And the answer was no. And that's okay. We don't have control over them. But I think it was important for us and important for the company for them to know how we felt about what they were doing. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, but that's kind of my take.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just, thinking of the person that might be listening who just might be scared to think like, gosh, I really would want to use this device, but because of what I'm seeing or reading on this website, I feel this pull. And to your point, okay, well then you don't have to do it. But for them to know like there is nothing morally wrong with you using it along with your teacher to learn NFP. I think that's my biggest thing. That fear, that false fear, right? This isn't like a fear of God. This is I'm afraid I'm going to do the wrong thing. Am I doing the wrong thing? Especially in a situation or in this context, right? Like we're talking about family planning. Like both of you said, having a baby is a big deal. And so whatever can bring peace back to that marriage and that relationship, and they can have that good understanding. That's my greatest hope for whoever would listen to this conversation. I think a lot of people from a lot of walks of life for a lot of different reasons could get a lot from this conversation, what you both presented today. But that's kind of the person I have in mind, specifically listening, that they will experience a sense of peace to know I can use this, I can use these methods and these devices with my NFP method, and that's okay, and they can have that comfort. So, Sara, did you want to say anything before we up?
I had a thought. One of the things that was said in the middle of all of the stuff all the questions we had that I thought was interesting, and I think we came to a nice place, a good place with our code of ethics that provided a lot of clarity. But in the process, we had some questions that we were hoping would have objective answers to, and there really weren't. And I think it was one of the lawyers we talked to actually said, you could go in the room with 3 different theologians and have a conversation and come out with 5 different answers. Like nobody is going to have the exact same answer in these kind of topics, on these topics. And so discernment is so important, and considering all the aspects of it important. And if you decide you don't want to use the Mirror monitor or the Clearblue monitor or whatever it is because of one thing they said on their website or 15 things they said on their website, that's okay. You don't have to. And that it's not a bad thing to not use it or to use it. But if it's something that, you have to discern, if it's going to make your marriage better, if it's going to improve your relationship, consider it and think about it, and don't be afraid of it. We have there's all different examples of the things we have to navigate in the world. And this is another one of them.
Absolutely.
So
Great. This was so great. Thank you so much, ladies, for your time and for sharing that great presentation with us. Does anyone have anything else? We're going to link in the show notes to Marquette. Is there anything else we should link to that either of you would recommend specifically on this topic or anything else?
The Marquette Professional Association, our website.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, great. I will link to that in the show notes. And if you haven't listened to our interview with Louise, please go back and I'll link that in the show notes too. You can listen to that. Thank you again both so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Thanks for all this hard work that you put into doing this. I'm excited to see kind of what keeps unfolding from it. So all you ladies have a wonderful
Thanks so much for having us.
Absolutely. Yep. Bye.
Bye.
That wraps up another episode of the NFP Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you found our discussion enlightening and empowering. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear from you. Please connect with us by sending us an email with your questions and stories to thenfpshow@gmail.com. We'll be back next week with more insights, tips, and heartfelt conversations about natural family planning. Until then, love responsibly.